with people who pass away. Why do they know about that? I know Matter wants to come in. Can you talk to me a little bit about cryogenics?
They got that technology from the people that was under the ice in Antarctica. They was telepathically communicating with the scientists because they wanted to throw them out and preserve them alive. And the scientists couldn't figure out. So if you pay attention, cryogenics has been around since the 50s.
Yes.
Admiral Richard Byrd went to Antarctica about the 30s.
Yeah, I was going to say the 30s when he was in Antarctica.
Right. So when they found the people under the ice, they thawed them out. If you go on TikTok and type in Bashinga tribe, the backstory they gave us is they brought these people from Africa and turned them loose in Antarctica and they thrived. That's not the true story. The real story is they thawed them people out from under the ice and they was already used to being cold. So once they thawed them out, it wasn't difficult for them to adapt to conditions of the ice, and they was already at home.
Okay, that makes more sense. Thank you for sharing that. So, yeah, we there's so much stuff that you said. We've already had the technology that's here now. It's ancient.
It's ancient.
Right.
Yeah. Like when we talk about the med beds and the healing chambers in the ancient writings, they just call them sarcophagi.
Sonetter, he's touching on what I was telling you about the resurrection chambers. That's what we call today healing pod. Wow. Right? The med bed is a sarcophagi. The healing pod is a resurrection chamber. It can actually regenerate lost limbs. Thank you.
And missing organs inside the body.
They were laughing at me.
It regenerates you from your genetic blueprint. It reads your biology and then it matches to your genetic blueprint. If your genetic blueprint say that you're supposed to have a foot, but there's no foot here, it can stimulate the growth of the foot. That's what keloids is from.
Oh wow!
Because the Atlanteans had used the chamber so long, they learned how to mimic the chamber with the mind.
Okay,
but since we forgot, we can't grow a new ear, but we can grow a big ass keloid.
That makes sense, though. Yeah, and also possibly, Chief, it could. Yeah, wow. Oh no, it's not normal, but it's just
be a planet. Because the planet has took on a solid shape because somebody's watching it. It's no longer a wave. So you're talking about like the double slit experiment where the observer causes the wave to collapse into the particle. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
but then outside, go ahead.
So the observer of the planet is still the person that's looking through the telescope. So you still gonna have the effect of the wave collapse. Every reality that we postulate is false in the 3D. Because tomorrow not here because we ain't created it yet. Yesterday gone because we used it up already. Right, so we burned down yesterday in order to build tomorrow, but too many of us getting stuck today because we can't shift the paradigm until enough of us agree to shift the paradigm. So whether it's flat Earth, round Earth, hollow Earth, they all right and they all wrong at the same time in the 3D because the wave have to collapse into a particle. So in the wave state, it's an infinite plane. In the particle state, it becomes a torsion field because all things that form into that shape forms the torsion field. The torsion field is replicated by every planet as an atmosphere and every human as a whole. Right? So you either going to see the wave form or the collapse form. Right? Then some people see the middle. They see a concave Earth or a convex Earth. because of the perspective and the angle in which they collapse into atoms on the perception of their reality. So everybody right and everybody wrong because it's all in the process of creation. You got to have enough people agree or disagree. This ain't the first time there's been a hot, heated debate about flat Earth, round Earth. Why do it periodically come up, and what's the pattern? It normally comes up at the close of the age. The reason it normally comes up at the close of the age because all paradigms have to be challenged for the creator guys to collapse the wave into the particle to see the reality that they choose to see. It's a group effort, but don't nobody know they being participated because you have the people they call gatekeepers leading the pack on telling you what you need to be seeing in order for you to collapse with them the reality that they want you to produce on their behalf.
And
so the observer is still the individual. All the individuals are the observers, collapsing the waves into the particles of reality.
Can we get downloads from those particles as well?
You can read them like you reading the streamer in the Matrix. You could trace an idea back to a source because it's only a frequency. Anything a machine can do by following the frequency, the mind can do the same. It's just that we not taught or told how to use the mind to the capacity of imitating the machine. You got doulas that could look at a woman when she walk in the door and tell her exactly the day and the time she about to give birth within seconds. But you got doctors that's been practicing medicine for 60 years have to do a whole bunch of tests because he can't figure it out the exact day without his test. Because he can't read the collapse of the wave into the particle that resulted in the birth of the baby, as well as the trained doula. Because she's trained to use other senses than machine, but the doctor trained to use the machines to do it for him.
All right. Rebel Rasta, you ready? Rebel Rasta.
Yeah, bless up, sir.
Bless up.
All right.
Yeah, man. Bless up, brother Hayes. You don't know, big up yourself, Sakina Ra. Now, bless up yourself. I Rastafari. So that's right. But I heard you said something to an extent of we coming down here. So I would like you to expound because you know the Dogans talk about us coming from the stars. But I would like to make the connection also that we didn't come from the stars or we came from the stars. And how did we come through our mom's portal from the dad's seed? And you're saying like we come from somewhere to down here. So like, elaborate and kind of make the connection for me, please.
The father's seed is secondary in creation. The Y chromosome is an X with an atrophied appendix, and it has about 30% less genetic information than an X chromosome, right? The reason why is that the mutation was activated in a prior time by the will of the feminine to change the makeup and structure to produce the masculine, right? Credo Mutua give it to us in the separating of genders through the red light and the blue light. So, but this is metaphoric for the training of the royal family. The red house trains the mother's children and the blue house trains the father's children. This became your Scottish Rite and York Rite Masons, right? Now, the hierarchy of what they call principalities, which is frequency waves of the earth, the people first have to call on their personal family leader, who then calls on the community leader. The community leader then calls upon the multiple community leader. So the grievances vex go through a chain of command on the father line as the ruler line, the governors of the mother's realm, guardians of the sacred yoni, protector of women. So in the process of the training, he has to understand what he's protecting in order for him to be an effective protector. So the reduced genetic matter caused the man to take on a different form as the woman in order to be her protector. But all zygotes, meaning the children, before the mother sends them the permission to convert gender, are female. They become, once her chemistry determines she's going to let the Y chromosome activate, she changes the gender to male in utero. The male then forms into the masculine protector of the feminine. Then once this happens, she produces a male child. But the source still has to trace back to the powerhouse of the cell called mitochondria. Now, because of the missing genetic matter, the men cannot pass mitochondria, but it's required to power the cell of the masculine. The process by which the mother selects the son's wife is by frequency of mitochondria. She don't never have to personally meet her, but the mitochondrial frequencies have to match the unconditional love frequency. And this frequency is what's the sacred marriage or the holy marriage, the uniting of Tahuti and Isis, or the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine being joined as one in order to be a pair of gods as co-creators of the reality. And it's known as the holy drama, as it's played out in the story of Osiris and Isis. And the Dogons also teach the holy drama, but they don't teach it exoterically, they teach it esoterically. The exoteric is the arrival of the Syrians in order to give from Sirius B in order to deliver. We know that they told us, they put it in the public domain, that the spell was broken. This was the George Washington Challenge. The George Washington Challenge was a pact made in Masonic lodges. This is why it's not part of his public record, but they can't take it out of the public domain. They have to leave it in the public domain in some fashion or form for us to recover the information and put the story together. And we done went over this before, but this is when they put the tribes with the conquistadors, Huguenots, and gentry under one determination of black, right? And the reason why they done that is because we was the ones responsible to break the spell. Either the righteous Moors is going to win or the dirty Moors is going to win, right? Mm-hmm. It said we would agree to take the feathers and turbans off the Moors' heads and remove the sandals from their feet. You see when it say sandals, when the Europeans came over here, the French, Italians, the Portuguese, the Spanish, the English, they wore something called buckle shoes. We all remember the buckle shoes. We went over that, Elder. Mm-hmm. But our moccasins, they call sandals. And for severe punishments, this is reiterated by, nonetheless, I think it was John D. Rockefeller, which is going to tie back into this when we go back to the origin of the hope, or the origin of the blood contract, right? Mm-hmm. And then they say, swear a death oath. The death oath is called the most vile and bloody oath of the papacy. We already went over that. Mm-hmm. But anybody that want to see it, it's online. You can look it up. It's called the most vile and bloody oath of the papacy. That's their death oath. Between ourselves to religiously, that means they're going to use religion, and faithfully, and they're going to use faith-based organizations not to allow anyone to teach the Moorish children or block us out of the education, who they really were and who their forefathers were, and only allow the Moorish children to be taught that they were truly Negroes, Black people, and colored folks. 200 years from today, the Moorish people would not know their nationality, nor their national name, or their forefathers. Also, they would not know from which land or ancestors that they descended from. So all of those means is in there. Now, it's a couple things we need to know of terms. This term called patsy, right? Now, remember, we're talking Machiavellianism. When we're looking at these definitions or these descriptions that AI print out, it's going to tell us the background to the term patsy, which is a person that takes the fall for somebody else's wrongdoing. The person that took the fall is called a patsy, right? And it was tied to several different points of origin. As we see right here, it's the Italian influence. Some believe it derives from the Italian word pazzo, meaning madman, or the Southern Italian word paccio, which is also tied to Pinocchio, meaning fool. After Italian immigration to America, pazzo might have been Americanized as patsy and used to describe a gullible or easily deceived individual. Now we're talking Keefe D. Now, when they say vaudeville, remember, DC is political satire. Hollywood is actual big screen satire. It's all comedy. It's comedy, it's drama, it's vaudeville. Vaudeville was the plays they used to put on, and the traveling minstrel shows had what they call vaudeville acts, where they did plays and other things. It's another strong possibility traces the term patsy to Patsy Bolivar, a character in a late 19th century vaudeville skit who was always blamed when things went wrong. This character may have become a popular image of someone who takes the fall for others, right? That particular play was based on a true story. It wasn't a true story in and of itself, but it was based on one. The Irish connection. There's also a theory connecting Patsy to the Irish-American diminutive to the name Patrick. In this context, Patsy was initially used as an underworld adjective for all is well, which evolved into sucker.
Wow.
The Pazzi family. Now, this is between two warring families in Italy. You had the Pazzi family and the Medici family. Prince Niccolo Machiavelli was the advisor from prison to the rising prince named Leonardo di Piero Medici. That means lion of the dog of the Medici clan, which is a Jewish story, the lion and the fox. Is what they're talking about. The lion and the fox is the quintessential characters of the perfected leader. Right. So when they tell you the story of Machiavelli or Niccolo Machiavelli, he was a part of the fallen order. When the order fell, all of the advisors to the old royal family, the Pazzi family, was rounded up, and that's who Niccolo Machiavelli was originally working for when he started before he got locked up. When he got locked up, he assessed all of the princes of the Medici family, and up on his assessment determined that the most likely Medici to become the king would be the prince named Leonardo di Piero Medici. And so he started courting him through letters. He was writing letters back and forth, trying to get his attention so that he can work his way from out of prison by advising the prince that's about to become the king on showing his prowess as an advisor.
Smart.
So first thing he wrote him was a series of letters, right? These letters is in a book called The Discourse by Niccolo Machiavelli. It's Discourses. Then he asked the prince asked him to give him a treatise on war, and he wrote a book called On War by Niccolo Machiavelli, where there's a discussion between the NCO general and the general that worked his way. A commissioned officer who came in through school. So you had one that was educated in warfare and one who had rose the ranks that was going through the actual warring on the battlefield all the way up to the rank of general. He was eventually raised. So that's the art of war. That's his On War. And their discussion is war strategy. So he sent that to him. And then his most prominent work is The Prince. The Prince is instructing Leonardo on what the prince that aspired to be king need to know in order to hold his positions of power as the king. But first he has to become a crown prince capable of seizing the throne by blood and by right, and also outshining all the rest of his adversaries. So the Pazzi family is who their major conflict was. So some sources suggest a link to the Pazzi family of the 15th century Florence, who were involved in a failed attack on the Medici family and were punished severely. However, this theory is less likely due to the timeline. The word Pazzi as a fall guy was first recorded much later, around 1900. Right? So, in summary, while the exact origin of Pazzi is debated, it likely stems from a combination of influence, including the Italian term for the fool or madman, and the popularizer vaudeville character who served as a scapegoat.
Wow. This makes sense now. This connection right here. I needed this piece. Let's go to the other piece.
Okay, now this word is martyr. A martyr, it tells you here. So we know Jesus was a martyr. We know Malcolm was a martyr. Martin was a martyr. Gandhi was a martyr. And there's a whole bunch of other ones. But the word martyr originates from the Greek word martys, meaning witness. In its original context, it referred to a person who gives testimony, often in a legal setting. However, the term evolved to encompass those who suffered death for their faith, particularly in the context of early Christian persecution. Right? So when the Christians was killing people for not betraying what they believed, that person was classified as a martyr. Right? So you have both Christian martyrs and non-Christian martyrs. You have so-called Jewish martyrs who died for the Jewish faith. And then you have Islamic martyrs, like the ones who put on the vest in Kabul. They can stay considered as martyrs for Islam and the freedom of Palestine. Right? In the dictionary, it says a person who is killed because of their religious or other beliefs is a martyr. A person who displays and exaggerates their discomfort or distress in order to obtain sympathy or admiration. That's actually a pseudo martyr. There's a person pretending to be the martyr, the second definition. Right? So we wanted to know what these words mean. And this is why. Because the martyr for the American Revolution is the one with what they call first blood power of sacrifice. What it means by power of sacrifice, meaning that the first blood is the blood required for a sacrifice to be is most functional. Let me get a drink, Al.
Take a drink. Hey, y'all, hit that like, hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel, man. We're about to get lit.
Okay. So I say the first blood holds the power of sacrifice. Can be interpreted in various ways, particularly within a religious context, where the shedding of blood often symbolizes sacrifice, atonement, and redemption. Got it? Biblical interpretation. First sacrifice in the Bible. The shedding of blood first appears in the biblical narrative when God provided animal skins to cover Adam and Eve after they sinned. This sacrifice is seen as atonement for their sins and foreshadows the ultimate sacrifice of Jesus Christ. Right? The power of the blood. Blood is closely linked to life and sacrifice in the Old and New Testament. Leviticus 17:11 states, "For the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you upon the altar to make an atonement for your souls. For it is in the blood that maketh an atonement for the soul." Right? That's called blood right. See, Jesus' blood sacrifice. This is where they say they martyred Jesus. The blood of Jesus is seen as the ultimate sacrifice for humanity's sins. His sacrifice made once can cleanse all sin, grant redemption, and allow believers to enter God's presence. Covered in blood. Let that sink in. I don't know what God they're talking about. Sacrifice and atonement. Across different traditions, blood sacrifice often symbolizes the surrender of something precious to appease a higher power or to atone for a wrongdoing. The shedding of blood representing life has a significant impact on releasing power or achieving redemption. That's real important. The significant impact on releasing power and achieving redemption. So you can use the blood to gain power, and you can also use the blood to redeem the power. Right? Protection and preservation. In some belief systems, blood sacrifice is linked to protection and preservation. For instance, in the Passover story, the blood on doorposts marked the house of the Israelites for deliverance from the plague. Right? In summary, the phrase "first blood holds the power of sacrifice" highlights the belief that the initial blood sacrifice holds significant power in terms of atonement, redemption, protection, and the ability to affect change by giving something precious for a greater purpose. Right? So the George Washington conjure is enforced by the blood sacrifice of Crispus Attucks. Now, the origin story, well, before we go into the origin story, also in the description is the video I did with B-Dale on blood sacrifice, where we go way deeper into blood sacrifice than we going in over here. But we have to know it was the first blood sacrifice that they used to put us in the sleep state to keep us, and they enforced it with harsh punishment, mistreatment, and abuse. And our enemies never stopped murdering us. Even when we stopped fighting them, they still never stopped murdering us. They still never stopped killing us. They still never stopped feeding us to the beast. They even infiltrated our organizations. Now remember, when they infiltrated Garvey didn't have no pale faces in his organization. He had pale faces that he knew, that he spoke to about the conditions of the people. But in his organization, the only people that could infiltrate the UNIA was somebody that looked like us. The same thing go for Noble Drew Ali. The same thing go for Elijah Muhammad. The same thing go for Yahweh bin Yahweh. And I can keep going down the list. But they've been using this pattern of infiltration and subversion And the origin story goes back not to John D. Rockefeller, but to the wizard. The quintessential wizard is John D., who was this, but the one that was before her. So the ones that carried the weight of the conjure, Rockefellers, right, was also instrumental with advisory to the Queen, Elizabeth. And you got to see everything coming out of the conjure you seen going in the conjure. We just seen it in the mirror effect in a different position, but having the same fundamental function.
Years old when I found out.
John D.
Hold on, no. Okay, hold on. Before you go to this. Okay, so you see in the last video, it told you about John D. Rockefeller's father being called the devil. We see that John D. Rockefeller was one of the founders of the modern system of education.
Right.
Under him, you had two psychologists who worked at different times for the Rockefeller Foundation, who funded a lot of these nefarious psychological training programs. You had Ivan Pavlov, who was a Khazarian from Russia, and then you had B.F. Skinner, right? Who I think he was from Canada,
right?
So they were the ones instrumental in creating what's called the conditioned response system and the four walls closed method. The four walls closed method is derived from something called a Skinner box. So y'all can look up a Skinner box and see what I'm talking about. He ruined his daughter with a Skinner box. Okay, and Ivan Pavlov was the one who discovered something called conditioned response, but he was under the Bolsheviks. So they had to leak the information out through spy channels to get it over here to the Rockefellers to use in the development of modern education. We are not being educated at school. We are being socially programmed to be self-destructive. In the origin, and the person that dug up all of this from ancient records, name was John D., who became an advisor to Queen Elizabeth way back in the day. He gave her a 200-year program that wasn't implemented until the George Washington Challenge around 1776. And that program was a blood right ritual, right? You're going to hear them talk about something called Enochian magic. The Enochian magic system is an ancient magic system that John D. was exposed to somewhere, that he began to put the pieces together on how to entrance large groups of people using the blood sacrifice. But the rank have to be consistent with the reaction of the people. So this tell you that Crispus Attucks, who they keep claiming was a mixed American, but he wasn't. He was a full-blooded American. Always been here. Bloodline ancient.
Right. That's right.
And so the reason why they have to always tell you he was the first person to die in the American Revolution is so that we will be able to identify what's called the sacrifice of the first blood. By identifying that, it tells you how to break the conjure, is exposing it to as many people affected by the conjure as possible. It's the only way to break it.
Okay.
And so we go over who John D. was, and y'all get to understand the magnitude of all of this sorcery and
connection there with the John Deere, the one that
John was one of the most popular names that they would call us.
Go ahead.
You know he was native because his last name was Deere.
Go ahead.
Well, all of us over here, all of our last names was either tied to our family's profession or our totem animal. The oldest tribes use totem animals to name themselves after. Right. This is why you get people named John Elk, John Deere. You know what I'm saying?
Bear.
Bear. Yeah. All of them come from native bloodlines. They don't come from. That's why they carry that. Now they could be Some of them could have been passing and integrated into European culture over here and still carry that name because they still carry the blood. Right? You only need one drop of blood. Okay, so that was one. It's a real long one on here. We're not gonna watch, Elder, unless you want to. But it's another.
That one.
So now, when we talk about first blood, now look, the first person to die in the American Revolution was Crispus Attucks, right? A mixed race man, and I want you to tell you he was a high chief who was killed in the Boston Massacre on March the 5th, 1777. That's what set off the Civil War. He was shot by British soldiers during a confrontation that escalated into the event known as the Boston Massacre. Attucks was a sailor and is now considered the first martyr of the American Revolution.
Right.
So now you see why we went over martyr. Right? Because what was he fighting for? He was fighting to liberate the tribes from the parasites called the British. That's what he was fighting against. The British is in control of your police force. The British is the same as saying the English. We just say that when you say England, you're saying a small part of the British consists of 5 islands or 5 pieces of land. Right? But when you say English, England is one of the British territories. They 5 land pieces of land territories. Right? So you see how it started during the confrontation, right? That escalated into the Boston Massacre, right? So around this time, we're talking Boston Tea Party, where people dressed up like Indians to protest the tax that the British was putting on the tea, the 2% sales tax.
And the British were the Moors, right? The British were Moors.
The Moorish gentry, they was gents.
Yeah.
Right. But remember, the people that's dressing up like they Indians to raid the ships in the Boston Tea Party, they was masquerading as us. Why would they masquerade as us?
Right. The Mohawk tribe.
Okay, now they have to look like us to act like us.
Right.
Or the other people would have knew that it wasn't us. If they was pale faces dressed up like us, then the rest of the pale faces would have knew that them ain't them ones.
Yeah, that makes sense, Rod. Go ahead. I didn't think about that.
Right. Now, in the colonist grievance was according to the history books, the colonists was the ones mad about the tax. We don't give them about the tax to Britain. We want y'all off the land. This is what Crispus Attucks is dying for.
Yeah.
Right, because y'all came in wreaking havoc out the gate. History's already told us all of this stuff, but what do it mean is the hard part of reading what's being told. When John D say he was coding stuff, he's talking about Shakespeare in the Bible. Right? Who shakes spears? Only 2 people on the earth is known for shaking spears. Americans and Africans.
Right.
So let that sink in for a minute.
Yeah, that's heavy duty right there.
Who is the flaming spear?
Right.
That the natives call the flaming arrow. Right? So the reason why this is in the Elder, if you could scroll to the bottom so I can see what it say. It's more than one Big Mama on the land, just like it's more than one chief on the land.
Go ahead.
This is the breaking of the spell edition, right? On Big Mama's land. To all the Big Mamas on the land, this is how the deception worked. With the blood conjure magic and the blood of Crispus Attucks, they wrote a constitution that was supposed to last until 1776. But we gave them an extension because we went back to war and we, Elder,
1812.
Yep. Which gave the 200 years to be up in 2012. The only reason why we still lingering around is because all of the chiefs that knew what was going on didn't know how to explain it. So I had to get drafted from my regular life that I had built for myself at the prison, where I had everything I wanted. I had to give it all up in order to give y'all everything y'all need in order to break the spell.
Mm-hmm.
Happy Friday the 13th. Frida Day. Frida Day.
That's fair.
So Malachi, book 4. 4 mean four corner shuffle.
Oh, yeah.
Right? The four corner shuffle is the 4 X's. The 4 X's is the motherland, daughters, to daughter to mother. So this is the information that the women need to know more than the men. Right? Because somewhere along the line, they didn't also use some other, what we call yoni blood magic.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And only the women can track that down because it's tied to the portal. And they had to come together in agreement to break the final branch of the spell, which was the menstrual blood ritual that followed the sacrifice to Crispus Attucus.
Mm-hmm.
So any of the sisters out there that's mediums, track that energy down. And if you tell me the story, I can remember exactly where to find the receipts. So pull out your tarot cards, your runes, your divination tools, your candle, right? Whatever it takes, because that's the only things that the women gotta agree that the yoni magic can't be used to help hold us in bondage any longer because the core spell is broke.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And this is part of the Right Knowledge series. Now remember, everything we do, Elder, in the public domain. Public notice for all of the tribes.
Yeah.
Notice the agent is notice the principal.
That's right.
Once we put it in the public domain in the oral tradition of the people, and the people have free access to it, then they get to teach one, spread the story so you can show them the receipts to understand the conjure work in order for the sisters to break us free.
Go ahead.
So it's up to the feminine to call back all of the feminine rogue energy. Rogue is another way of saying rouge. Rouge means red. Red is the reference to the blood out of the red house. And every drop of blood counts. It's one drop unaccounted for.
All right, that's the last one, Rod. We got some. I got some questions for you then.
Yep.
All right, here we go. Let me go back. Let's see.
Hold on, Elder. You remember when they say John D put a spell on the Spanish Armada?
Yeah.
Remember when they said that? So, what was the spell? They never told us what it was supposed to do, but it Spanish. What else happened around this time, right after the American Revolution, that tied to the Spanish Armada? Or you might call it Morocco.
I'm going to say that the peace, the treaty happened. 78.
Yeah.
And the Illuminati.
Right, because
around the same time too.
All that stuff is tied together. Right.
Yeah, I know it.
And the only reason we know about it is because we're supposed to put it back together in the digestible format. Elijah Muhammad said that we got to make it plain enough for a baby to understand it.
17.
We can't get more simpler than we been, with the receipts being there to guide the vision to see the problem.
Hey, so what was
really give them the solution?
That's what I'm trying to figure out, because we had everybody trying to take advantage of us because they say we were so nice. Christopher Columbus. Now this is the thing. Okay, so they said we ain't have guns.
Christopher Columbus allegedly said in his diaries that we didn't have guns, and that because we didn't have guns, and that the way he described it, because I just picture based on what he said. He said that we were afraid almost of this type of weapon or this type of things like he said they were fearful of this gun. So he talking as if we didn't know what guns was when the Moors came over here. They used to have guns like the British. Everybody before he did.
Okay, let me deal with that.
Okay.
This is how you know that guns is nothing new. They just named and changed over the millennia to protect the guilty. If you go back to the Dogon, when they was given instructions by the Momo, right? They said, do not partake in the projectile weaponry. It is forbidden for you. They don't use guns to this day.
I think I heard something like that, but when they said I thought they were talking about a slingshot or something.
Talking about the guns. The guns. Before you come with energy-based weapons, when a new civilization is on the rise, it's going to always figure out projectiles first. Because it's the easiest thing to discover. Picking up a rock and throwing it. Your arm is a projectile weapon. You're slinging a projectile. But it's going to evolve where you figure out how to make the projectile deadly. This is backing it up with some extreme power under pressure, like gunpowder.
That's right.
Encased in the shell, capped with a slug. Right? So the guns ain't nothing new. Right? They got different kinds of guns in ancient literature, but they not the kind of like, for instance, they got ancient Chinese guns that was like a Gatling gun and they shoot a whole bunch of like bottle rockets at you at one time, like 100 of them. So it's been around a long time.
Now this is the thing, man. So the British, it seemed like to me, the Moors was taking advantage of us at the same time, but then it's like it was different groups. Like one group was only protecting their people. Like they had Muslim Moors over here, they were protecting them. Just like the peace in the treaty, it said that we want to only protect our people, the American citizens, the Moors. That's American citizens. That's what the Morocco said. Then it said nothing about indigenous people, right? And then, but a lot of people make that when they say, when the Moors made that statement, they were talking about indigenous people. Those American citizens were indigenous people, right?
Okay, now you gotta remember, a lot of what they attributing to the Moors is actually done in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Right, because Morocco only been Morocco since this 1900s.
Yeah.
The flag came from Noble Drew Ali, who had it first, which came from an ancient Indian flag from over here, which was actually a banner. Then they took it over there and established Morocco, but Morocco, like everybody's saying ancient Morocco, not ancient. It's not even 150 years old yet. Right? And all of this is part of us when we understand that they use this magic conjury to put us under a hypnotic spell. Right? The hypnotic spell was enforced through, because you have to do, when you do a conjure of that magnitude, you have to have what's called a maintenance system. If the maintenance system starts to break down, the power over the spell will break because nobody's maintaining the conjure. And so this is why you had an 1812. They didn't understand fully how the conjure worked. They were still figuring it out. Right? But the spell began to break off the people. And war broke out.
Yeah, so this is the thing. So with the American Revolution and these guys, cause we building up to it. These guys got brought over here by the Moors. These criminals, they were convicts that was starting the 13 colonies. They were like mostly convicts, and the convicts were working for dirty Moors, working for Moors.
They were all indentures. They was called indentures when they came over. They wasn't called criminals yet.
Okay. Yeah,
they was called in because in Europe, see, you got to go back to the to English law, which most of us on this side of the land don't know jack about what was going on in England when all of this stuff was going on, because we only care about what's going on at home, which is practically makes sense, because we ain't supposed to give a damn what's going on at your house, and we ain't taking care of what's at our house. So all of our focus is trying to figure out the history only from the American viewpoint.
Right.
But when we start going into world history, and this is why Dr. Clark and Dr. Ben used to be so hostile sometimes toward people trying to explain this stuff to them. Right? And Dr. Ben was one of the first ones saying that it's two groups of black people calling themselves the rightful Jews, and one of them is a fraud.
Right.
Right? And then Dr. Clark is the one to tell you how they even got, how these newcomers, these pale faces, even got to be called a Jew.
Right.
Right. Then Dr. Clark also said, I question the intelligence of anybody who believe everything in that supposed to be true. So he said that the stories is not even supposed to be true. Some of them are metaphors.
Right.
Right. But when you break it down, go back to its origin, all of the stories converge on the holy drama, which is the Syrian resurrection story, the oldest resurrection story on the planet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And the only reason why we confused about it is because they changed the names to villainize the innocent and glorify the guilty.
This brings my next question, Rod. Now, how could you be once you find out all this information about the doctrine of discovery, about how Elizabeth and them got over here scheming and scamming, doing magic and witchcraft, to get over here and force us by gunpoint to be Christians? How could you still be a Christian after this? Like, how could you still believe it? Like it's hard to go with that. We got colonized with Christianity, you know.
Before I knew that we didn't have Christianity, before the colonizer.
Yeah, right.
Before I knew that the Bible was written geographically for a small group of people out of the place today called the Middle East. Right. Before I understood any of that, I knew that they had the story wrong.
Dang.
I knew that. I told my mama when I was 5 years old and the preacher was telling us a story, Mama, why that man up there lying? I've been knew that long that this was some BS. Now, my lifelong mission is to figure out how to tell the tribes what's going on without them thinking I'm batshit crazy.
Right. You totally get crazy, being that everybody being colonized with Christianity and indoctrinated with the Roman Catholic.
They hypnotized.
Doctrine. Yeah.
It's mass hypnosis. That's why they got us tied so strong with religion, because every time the hypnosis get to fade, religious people find a way to religiously bring you back into the fold of religion. Religion is monotony. Monotony is required in order to induce the hypnotic state. Mm-hmm. So anybody want to understand what I'm talking about, there's a preacher named Roy Masters, retired from being a hypnotist to be a preacher. And he have a book called The Hypnosis of Life that explained to you exactly how you was being hypnotized. Mm-hmm. Now remember, the blood magic is to put you in a stupor. That means that's how they tell the mass group of people to relax with the blood ritual. because the pheromones from the blood sedates the angelic beings. So they go into this stupor. Because it was the blood of the righteous, it can't be broken until it's been fulfilled. Right? So now we just had to track down who blood did they use to put us under this spell. Right? And we know that the matriarchs now is primed to receive the heritable right back to the land. And so now they need to correct the sisterhood. The sisterhood got to be prepared to fall into that love energy in order to convert this place to heaven on earth. Once they do that, we'll be all right. But I'm tell y'all something else. John D was using the black mirror. You remember that?
Yeah, that's what you just said, the black mirror. And he was right, yeah.
Do you know who else was using the black mirror around that same time, but they was French?
Not Bloody Mary, who French. What's the dude name?
Niccolo Nostradamus. Yep.
Yep.
He was using the black mirror just like John D, except he was in France, a Huguenot, and John D was in English at the gentry.
Then he trained
advisor to the queen.
Then Nostradamus wasn't he trained? He was training Mary. He trained Mary, Bloody Mary. The lady, you know,
I don't remember which one because the John D, Elizabeth, I think her name was originally Mary before she became the queen.
I was going to just ask you. Yeah.
Right. I think she was the one that was Mary of Bathory that they called Bloody Mary, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, because Nostradamus was studying the Hermes or Tahuti's stuff. And he was a high power wizard. Well, that's what they, he was one of their high power wizards. That's why they always promote, his right.
Mm-hmm.
Now that begs the next question: how does that Nostradamus tie with the slave ship narrative that they gave and the school? Because you was breaking that down a while back, where you said that they took the slave ship and it was really the layout of a church. You had showed
that's Notre Dame.
Okay, Notre Dame. That's what it was. Yeah, go ahead. That's what it was.
Right. So the flyer for the slave ship, with the slave ship on it, that they was using to tell us about slavery, is an actual overlay, Notre Dame University.
Yeah.
Right. It looked like it could be the blueprints taking away the schematics.
Yeah.
If you go to an aerial view of Notre Dame, it's a perfect if size it to scale where they both the same size and they perfectly fit one over the other.
Yeah. Yeah, we did.
I got it somewhere on one of my Instagrams too.
Yeah, we did on the
where I showed.
I'll find that short and cut it. I'll find the short and cut it. I think I had already cut the short off of it though. I think the short already in your phone.
Yeah, I think we did that in the class too, didn't we?
Yeah. On the one called Where We See You Two Black Devils. And the one on how the slave trade was fake. They can go get the tape called How the Slave Trade Was Fake. We did it in that one. That's the one, that main one. I'll lock it in the description. Hey, that brings my next question, Rod. Because they good on this slave narrative. Now, once 1812, this is when we get around the Seminole Wars and the Gullah Wars, right? Because Andrew Jackson is the one that's running everybody out, trying to run everybody off.
That's like the second or third Seminole War there.
Okay, yeah. So when Andrew Jackson, the Seminoles, when we was fighting them, that was part of the conjure. That was like that. Like what part of the conjure? Because that didn't end the conjure. That just ended the physical battle of it. The physical battle.
So in the lodges, I don't know exactly who's responsible for because I don't have access to the record. It's a Masonic record. It'll tell you the names of the ones that agreed to the ceasefire. It's the secret treaties. Mm-hmm. I think it's like 72 secret treaties.
Yeah.
And Trump took him to Mar-a-Lago with him. That's why he got raided. But he wasn't there no more.
That makes sense.
That's what they was looking for. They was looking for the secret treaties because Trump had already sent them to the military under heavy guard in order for the conjure to be broke.
And that's why he holding the Bible outside of the church upside down.
Right. That means that the Bible spell is broke.
Yeah.
Nancy Pelosi tore the Bible up on the podium.
Yeah.
Same day. That was the same exact date.
Yeah. And then the Pope announced, he washing his hands. He been did that actually before they told the Bible. So that gets that, yeah. So the Pope already know the conjure.
That's what made the other Pope step down. Because they wouldn't listen to him no more. Right? Because all this stuff was over with. He was telling them. Well, I think that was the Barack Obama letter.
In 2014, we got that documents too in the folders and the Native American chief folders.
Now everybody think that's a fake letter. Okay, well, think it's a fake letter if you want to. It's in the public domain. It's not a secret.
Yeah, everything comes to fruition now.
Yeah. So when they told them they're supposed to dismantle the police and all that stuff, and told the American public what was going on. But what most of us don't know is Barack Obama was following the orders that old man Bush told him. If they take me out or if they get on to us, you have to sell the country. And that's the only way you're going to be able to get any protection overseas. He's supposed to sell it and flee. He got caught. He can't go nowhere.
Yeah.
They was all around him everywhere he get. This is what that whole situation when they was trying to kill him with Petraeus and all of that. Because he had pulled off a full-fledged coup on the people of the land, and he ain't from here.
Go ahead.
He pulled the coup on the pale face. He don't like for no darky to get over